This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for this Thursday, June 4th. I'm George Thomas. Justice for George Floyd. All 4 officers involved in his killing have now been arrested and charged. Protesters celebrating the news, but taking to the streets again in their fight for change. All of this as the White House and Pentagon clash over the approach to contain the violence. CBN's Jenna Browder is following the story from our nation's capital.
The 3 remaining officers in the case have been taken into custody after charges were filed against them.
All 4 officers have been charged! Yeah!
Protesters in Minneapolis hailing the development.
We got all 4! We got all 4!
Derek Chauvin, the officer who knelt on Floyd's neck, now facing upgraded 2nd and 3rd degree murder, along with manslaughter charges. The other officers charged with aiding and abetting. All could face up to 40 years in prison.
They need to make an example of these 4 cops so these other cops will think about doing that again.
Meanwhile, in Washington, an apparent break between President Trump and his Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, over the issue of deploying active duty troops to crack down on the violent protests. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany telling reporters the president was still willing to deploy federal troops, even though Esper previously shot down the idea.
He has the sole authority to invoke the Insurrection Act, and if necessary, he will do so to protect American citizens.
After a meeting at the White House, Esper appeared to reverse course. Across the country, protests continue, many peaceful, but others turning violent, taking their toll on small businesses. Looting and vandalism dealing a blow to those already crippled by the coronavirus lockdowns. At the same time, major corporations like Delta Airlines and Amazon are seeing improvements as the economy rebuilds. And the stock market appears to be anticipating a strong recovery as it keeps shooting up, with some indexes approaching their old record highs. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thanks so much, Jenna. The head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division tells CBN News the George Floyd case is a top priority. The DOJ is now deciding whether to proceed with federal charges against the police officers accused in this tragic incident that has led to protests and riots across America. You can follow that story on today's 700 Club. Joining us now to break down what is happening in Minneapolis and to share about how the church is responding is Nick Hall. He is the founder of Pulse, a millennial-led prayer and evangelism movement based in Minneapolis. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast. This is day 9 of protests in several states across the county, and you recently took part in peaceful protests. How should faith communities address these protests?
Yeah, I really believe that this is a crisis moment in America and hopefully a turning point for the church in America, especially the primarily white church in suburbia that has been silent historically. I mean, what we're seeing in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul is hundreds of churches coming together, being on the front lines of this. And I've really been calling pastors and faith leaders that we need every voice. We need every person speaking out. For so many of our brothers and sisters of color, they interpret silence as complicity. And I think they're right. I think that there has been silence for too long, and now is not the time for silence. And so we're seeing people marching in peaceful protests. We're seeing pastors and ministry leaders standing on the edges of many of these gatherings for protection and safety of all. We're seeing pastors and ministry leaders in the middle of conflict, trying to de-escalate, almost standing in the gap between our law enforcement officials and those that are angry right now with good reason. But, you know, no one is condoning violence and looting. But I think the reality is if we are more willing to speak out against looting and riots than we are to speak out against the systemic racism and the unjust death of George Floyd, that points to the problem that has existed for too long.
You know as well that a large number of protesters are millennials. Nick, how can the church be reaching them to bring healing?
Yeah, I think that the millennial generation wants to see a church that is following the example of Jesus. And so I think that now is the time for the church to reclaim her voice, that Jesus stood for the eternal lives of people and also the lives of that they live here and now. He didn't just stand against eternal suffering. He stood against present suffering. And so I really think that now is the time to remove this false barrier that has existed where somehow if we speak out against injustice, that's a liberal or a social gospel. I think we need to reclaim the narrative that there's one gospel, and it's a gospel that covers every part of the life here and every part of the life to come. I think millennials are looking for a cause to be a part of. I think Jesus is the example of righteousness and justice.
You know that in a number of cities, the protests have turned violent. They're targeting officers in some cases. What can be done to help end the violence?
Yeah, again, I think that now is the time to speak peace in the midst of this storm. I think we need intercessory prayer. I think this is a demonic battle. It's a demonic battle that's turning people against each other instead of drawing people towards each other to understand. I think we need to seek understanding in the long term, and in the short term, I think we need voices of peace speaking up. I do think we need people on the ground in the middle of this. This isn't a time for armchair quarterbacks and trying to criticize what's happening from the distance as much as it is people that are there trying to de-escalate situations, trying to pray, trying to offer perspective. And I think we need to support our authorities as they're trying to enforce curfews, not to stop peaceful protests, but to protect our citizens.
Quickly, you wrote recently on a Facebook post saying that prayer is our supernatural protest against demonic injustice before Almighty God. Real quickly, 30 seconds, can you explain this?
Yeah, I really believe that this is the way that we protest before God in terms of saying, you know, God, these things aren't right. We're coming before you. There are strongholds and principalities, and we need to battle as the people of God on our knees. We need to confess the sin of racism. We need to repent. And I think we need to ask God to heal our land.
That's very, very good words, Nick. Really appreciate it. By the way, a memorial service for George Floyd will be held in Minneapolis today. It will be one of 3 services that will take place in 3 states over the course of the next 6 days. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show, and very, very important message at this time.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome. In other news, former Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was in the hot seat Wednesday, answering questions from members of the Senate Judiciary Committee on the origins of the FBI's Russia probe known as Hurricane Crossfire. Abigail Robertson has more.
Wednesday marked the first of a series of hearings Republican senators are pursuing to figure out if the evidence that launched the Mueller investigation was lawful.
There are people on our side of the aisle who believe that this investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, was one of the most corrupt, biased, criminal investigations.
Graham charged he wants to get to the bottom of what he thinks is a major abuse of power from the Obama administration. The hearing centered on new information that revealed errors in applications for warrants to surveil Trump campaign advisor Carter Page.
If you knew then what you know now, would you have signed the warrant application?
No, I would not.
But Rosenstein defended the appointment of special counsel Robert Mueller, saying that was the best way to determine what Russia did in the 2016 election.
As we now know, the eventual conclusions were that Russians committed crimes seeking to influence the election, and Americans did not conspire with them.
Democrats argued Republicans are wasting time when they should be focused on issues like racism in America's justice system or contact tracing and privacy issues.
Instead, we're taking up the Mueller report, an investigation that was completed more than a year ago. Why?
Claiming Republicans are trying to use this as political fodder ahead of the 2020 election.
Congress should not conduct politically motivated investigations.
Senator Graham plans to request an additional 53 witnesses come before the committee. Democrats say they were not consulted on these witnesses, and if the committee is going to bring forth more people, they'd like to add a few names of their own to the list, like Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thank you, Abigail. We move overseas. Hong Kong's leaders are forbidding public memorials on the 31st anniversary of their Tiananmen Square crackdown. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, died when tanks and troops moved in on pro-democracy protesters who had occupied the square in Beijing. Every year, people gather in Hong Kong's Victoria Park to remember those who lost their lives. Well, this year, officials are banning the event, citing the risk of spreading the coronavirus, even though many schools and businesses are open. This comes as China is working to pass new security laws, tightening its grip and control over Hong Kong. Coming up, President Trump is planning to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. But is it a good idea? We break that down next.
On the home front. Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans. On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Welcome back. President Trump and U.S. Attorney General William Barr say they are planning to designate Antifa, the left-wing anarchist group, a terrorist organization. Is the designation of the Oregon-based organization a good idea? Is it justified? Well, on this week's episode of The Global Lane, former Assistant Federal Prosecutor John O'Connor says Trump and Barr may be, quote, burning the barn to roast the pig.
I don't think you need to do it. I think if they are doing this in order to take advantage of some of the anti-terrorist laws, which are created by statute, I think you've got to show more of a foreign nexus to the organization to enable to use those tools. So maybe they're a terrorist organization, but I'm not sure where that gets you.
The organization began in Germany. Antifa started in Germany, anti-fascist.
Well, yeah. Now, if they are still connected, and I guess I'm not sure about the organization, and of course I should defer to our brilliant Attorney General. If it is part of a foreign group that is engaging in terrorism against the United States, then yes, then it is valid. They should be studying the videos, and I'm sure they are. And to the extent they can locate any Antifa members, and then to the extent they can get emails and phone calls linking up various Antifa members and the hierarchy to these demonstrations, I think they have one heck of a conspiracy case. And I don't think Attorney General Barr would do anything unless he thought it would be successful. So the fact that he's doing that, to me, heartens me.
You're talking about surveillance and listening in to the Antifa people. Shifting gears a bit, let's discuss that newly released FBI document that sparked the Crossfire hurricane investigation and surveillance there. Now, some Trump supporters, others say it proves there was no justification, no evidence for obtaining a FISA warrant and spying on the 2016 Trump campaign. So please explain to us, John, the significance of that FBI document.
Clearly, there was FISA abuse in the sense that we now know that the court was lied to multiple times in multiple ways. And everyone who is responsible and had any idea of the falsity, and that is to say the concealments in the presentation, should be prosecuted. The recent documents about Flynn, and especially the memo, the Susan Rice memo from the meeting in the Oval Office, are striking to me, some of the recent documents, including that memo, because it shows there was an obstruction of justice by James Comey, at least, and perhaps and others knew about it that were in that Oval Office meeting. They knew he was going to obstruct justice. The Rice memo talks about those normal, quote, law enforcement, unquote, investigations. Nothing is going to change as to the way the Obama administration was going to treat the incoming Trump administration regarding those normal law enforcement investigations. After January 20th, that is Trump's investigation. So what does Comey do? One of the first things he does is he sends Andrew McCabe over with another agent to interview Flynn in the White House. Sally Yates is flabbergasted. She tries to stop him. Comey says, too late. He's already gone. What we know then is that Comey and McCabe are going to talk to Flynn, who is one of the heads of the investigation. He's the national security advisor. It's his investigation along with the president's, and they're withholding information about it. So they're not only violating ethical norms, I think they're obstructing justice. And because they are concealing information from the head of the investigation, the same way Richard Nixon was kicked out of office for concealing information from his own FBI. Now we have people who leaked classified information. We know that happened. They were trying to trap Flynn by leaking things to scare him so that he would lie. There's some indication from the stroke page text that the CIA was leaking like a sieve, they say. Probably Comey and McCabe were maybe some White House people. So we have a whole battery of wrongdoing here, and it is sickening. It's more and more of a rat's nest every time we get a new disclosure.
Okay, we'll see where this all goes with John Durham and his investigation. Former Assistant Federal Prosecutor Attorney John O'Connor. John, thanks for being with us again. We appreciate it.
It's great talking to you.
You can watch more of The Global Lane tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, Planned Parenthood is backing a pro-abortion film geared toward teens. Hear how the abortion giant plans to use this to promote their deadly business.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ow!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
A teenage girl gets pregnant. What does she do? A new film backed by Planned Parenthood gives just one answer: go behind her parents' back and have an abortion. As Paul Strand reports, it's part of a new push the abortion giant believes will promote its deadly business.
Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always presents a world where it seems getting an abortion is the only right answer.
I went to the doctor. Are you okay?
That looks like a positive.
I'm just not ready to be a mom.
Ted Baer of the pro-family site movieguide.org.
So they make you feel sorry for her. So then you go and you want to get everybody an abortion. So this is propaganda.
Planned Parenthood is fully behind the film, even volunteering some of its actual staffers to appear in it.
I want to spend a few minutes talking with you about your relationships, okay?
It's part of a big push.
Planned Parenthood decided to start a Hollywood office last year and is pumping millions of dollars into the Hollywood office.
Abby Johnson's story of turning away from managing a Planned Parenthood clinic is the focus of the film Unplanned. She thinks this new movie is the pro-abortion side's answer to Unplanned and other pro-life efforts.
I'm not surprised at all that they would do anything, come up with some sort of story to try to demean all of the work that the pro-life movement has done.
This film received a PG-13 rating, while Unplanned, about Johnson walking away from Planned Parenthood, was rated R.
Of course, we're not going to show that to teenagers. This fits Hollywood's agenda. This fits the liberal media's agenda.
The Los Angeles Times raves. It's exquisite.
Let's romanticize abortion and show this sympathetic character who needs to have an abortion. Let's make that widely available to teenagers.
Baer slams the decision to label Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always as PG-13.
Especially for a movie like this, that's a propaganda movie for them to have illicit sex and to disobey their parents and to head off to get an abortion in New York City.
We see how young people are being manipulated every single day into believing that abortion is normal, into believing that taking the life of a human being is normal.
Contrast that to the 5-part series now on pureflix.com, Beautiful Lives.
It takes people behind the scenes of the abortion industry with 5 former abortion workers.
Johnson hopes teens choose Beautiful Lives over the other film.
I think it would show them the stark reality of what abortion really is.
Baer is calling on the 125 million church-going Americans to use their considerable clout on Hollywood and stay away from movies like Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always.
Actually, the church has a lot of leverage just by numbers because they need those people.
And he encourages everyone upset over these movies to let Hollywood know they're upset.
Every letter that goes into the studio, they figure that represents 1,000 people.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Paul. Coming up, when the coronavirus shut down their business, they discovered a creative way to get back to work. And now they are helping other businesses reopen. We hear this good news story right after the break.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. me. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Welcome back to the broadcast. When the pandemic shut down their Dallas business, one couple worried about the impact on their employees. Well, that led them to a creative idea that not only furloughed staff back to work, it's also helping other companies safely reopen. My colleague Charlene Aaron has that story.
Business was good for Alex and Kelsey Carroll of Toss Up Events, a Christian-owned company providing interactive gaming experiences. They've worked with some of the biggest names in pro sports: NASCAR's Atlanta Motor Speedway, Houston Rodeo, and Big East basketball. Then the global pandemic brought the sports world to a screeching halt. So did business for the Carrolls, quickly going from $3 million a year to nothing.
We had all of our employees all over the country, and it all stopped on the same day.
A dozen employees laid off.
Knowing that we were going to have to let our employees go, it was really hard.
As nerves and social distancing became the norm, the couple saw the need for safety equipment like hand sanitizer. In just 6 weeks, they transitioned to providing customized hand sanitizer stations, complete with dispensers and liquid sanitizer.
We knew that when events did come back, safety would be a huge deal. And we started just offering the hand sanitizer stations to businesses and churches.
As the country has slowly reopened, response to their stand-up stations has been overwhelming.
We're getting all kinds of businesses, orders from California, Washington, Texas, Florida, like all over the country.
We didn't foresee this happening a couple of weeks ago, the success. And so I think as more and more businesses and churches reopen, they're going to be looking for a solution like this.
With more than $1 million in sales and a growing team, these business owners are beyond grateful.
God had a plan for our employees, for us, for our family. And being able to see the employees come back to the office. And we've had more people join the team. Yeah. So we're up to 20 people in our office just working around the clock to get these shipped out. So it's been such a blessing. And we've been really fortunate.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Definitely some much needed good news in the midst of this global pandemic. Well, folks, that is it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, please tell us what you think about those stories you've been seeing by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Well, from all of us here at the headquarters of the Christian Broadcasting Network in Virginia Beach, Virginia, wish you all a fantastic day. Goodbye, and God bless.